Researchers now know that there are more than 5 distinct stages that occur during sleep each night. The most dynamic and mysterious of them all is the phase of REM, or rapid eye movement. During REM sleep, dreamers' eyes dart about as if scanning random and often bizarre dream imagery. Breathing and pulse rates slow, becoming less regular. Blood flows to the genital area, creating a state of sexual arousal. And then, deep within our brainstem, a chemical called acetylcholine is secreted that immobilizes our movement. We become paralyzed.
In order to prevent us from acting out our dreams, that mechanism sends signals down the spinal column to inhibit any kind of motor activity that might be generated in our dreams so that we cannot act out our dreams.
This paralysis is a self-imposed protective measure. But when an attack of sleep paralysis occurs, a person has the terrifying experience of being completely awake, but dreaming, and absolutely unable to move.
In sleep paralysis, what seems to happen is that as this waking mechanism begins to die down, this other mechanism becomes active very, very quickly, even before we fall asleep, so that we essentially begin to dream while we're still awake.
It's like when you're in a dream and you try and run away and your feet are frozen, or when you try and scream and you can't make a sound. It's exactly that same sensation. The only difference is you're completely aware, you know you're awake, and you see everything around you.
Sleep science may also explain another peculiar phenomenon commonly associated with abductions: strange sounds.
My abduction experiences, there's a sound you hear. It's like a high static sound. You hear your voice called sometimes.
Sounds maybe of instruments, things I could pick up by hearing.
Some people will hear a tone or beeping sound. Sometimes people will hear the name called. We have no idea how that works, but it doesn't seem like it's a tone that's out there in the real world, but it's something that is played on the nerves, so to speak.
Are the mysterious sounds accompanying alleged abductions caused by advanced alien technology, or is there a simple physiological explanation? In addition to rapid eye movements, scientists have also recorded similar activity in the middle ear during REM sleep. Here, the smallest muscles in the human body, the hammer and stirrup, actually vibrate as we dream.
What is likely happening in sleep paralysis is that these muscle spasms are actually producing a kind of random noise. They might sound like footsteps.
Hearing the tick of a clock.
Sometimes I felt it as if something were drilling on my head.
I heard laughter, definitely evil-sounding chuckle.
Why doesn't my husband wake up? Why can't he hear this?
Wondering how the whole neighborhood couldn't hear this sound, thinking that it was insane that there weren't people screaming all over the place because the sound was so loud.
People say, well, it's kind of like an electric motor, or it's a bit like glass breaking, or it's like a fan, or it's like an engine. Next step, like a spaceship.
One of the most dramatic experiences reported in alleged alien abductions is the feeling of movement. The sensation of being taken physically from one place to another by the aliens.
I had feelings of floating or recollections of being floating above a house and looking down.
3 aliens had come through the front door and walked me out to the front yard.
Can this phenomenon be explained by sleep science? Sleep researchers have recently discovered that REM sleep stimulates several areas of the human brain. One is the vestibular system, located at the base of the skull. In our waking life, the vestibular system controls our sense of motion and balance. During dreams, it simulates movement.
When these areas are stimulated, we feel rapid acceleration, floating and flying and falling.
I felt myself elevated off of my bed, slowly elevated off my bed, and I felt some extreme amounts of energy surging throughout my body, and I began to spin all around crazily.
I was dragged by my ankles by an unseen force down the hall and up the stairs. All of a sudden I was back inside my bed.
But the most fantastic and chilling event associated with the abduction phenomenon is seeing the alien intruders.
It had a large head. I just remember little pointed feet. When it moved in such like an exaggerated motion, like a cartoon character would move. It kind of lifted its leg and his arms at the same time and jetted behind the wall.
Recent neuroimaging studies may now explain such nightmares scientifically. Researchers have discovered that one section of the brain that becomes wildly active during REM sleep is the amygdala. Located deep within the temporal lobes of the brain, the amygdala is the body's fear center. In a normal waking state, it allows us to instinctively ferret out threatening predators. However, awakening paralyzed in a dream state triggers this mechanism in an unnatural way, causing the victim to experience uncanny fear that takes on a sense of evil.
People will often say, well, fear, that just doesn't cut it. This is not fear. This is absolutely abject, horrifying terror that I'm experiencing. There's this feeling that there's something absolutely evil out there.
The fear level on the most intense experiences was a 10. It was, I'm going to die.
Research also suggests that this fear mode caused by the amygdala also causes sleep paralysis sufferers to hallucinate frightening human forms.
People see many different things, and they're nearly always human or humanoid kinds of figures. Familiar images, things that are well stored and well rehearsed in our brains. Clearly the feeling that people have when they have these experiences, that it's beyond ordinary experience, so that they're not simply thought of as being scary animals in the corner of the room, but rather something that one doesn't normally encounter.
I started out feeling as if I was dying, but then eventually I thought I was having an involuntary out-of-body experience. And I kept telling myself, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to let this happen, because this could be really cool.
People who, after finally, years later, finding out that it's a normal thing, break down into tears with relief.
Learning of the sleep disorder has given its sufferers peace and something more.
I've turned this into a positive experience. This has sort of drawn me into lucid dreaming, which is slightly different in that when you're dreaming, you become aware that you're dreaming, but you're not paralyzed. You can move freely within the dream. And that opens the possibilities for all different kinds, you have access to your psyche.
I think sleep paralysis has allowed me to become aware that there's more to life than the physical realm.
It's pretty cool to be able to leave your body and be in another state and be able to just fly anywhere. I mean, leave the house, outside, fly. I mean, physically, it feels like you're physically flying.
I had one experience that was incredibly positive. I think it was a gift. It was a beautiful experience.
Even if there was a drug that could take this away, I would not want it to go away. As frightening as it is from time to time, it has never caused me any real physical harm. It definitely did cause me some emotional stress in the past, but I find this to be a really unique insight into either the human mind or the spirit world, and whatever it is, very few people have it, and to experience it is something very, very unique and very special. I'm definitely glad I have the opportunity to see some things that very, very few people get to see.